3 days before my sister's wedding, my father looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're not invited. Only family is allowed." I laughed because I honestly thought he was joking. But then my mother quietly placed an envelope in my hands. Inside was a one-way train ticket, not to the wedding venue, but out of town. At that moment, I realized they were serious. The people I had spent my entire life loving had decided that I wasn't family anymore. I picked up my bag, walked out without arguing, and never looked back. But exactly 3 days later, those same people who had thrown me away were desperately calling, crying, and begging me to return. They said only I could save them. From the outside, our family looked perfect. My parents owned a successful business, we lived in a beautiful house, and everyone admired us. My younger sister Emily was the princess of the family. She was beautiful, charming, and everyone adored her. Every birthday was about Emily. Every celebration was for Emily. Every achievement belonged to Emily. And me? I was simply the responsible son. I fixed problems, paid bills when my parents struggled, worked long hours, and sacrificed my dreams so my family could live comfortably. Whenever something broke, they called me. Whenever someone needed help, they called me. Whenever they needed money, they called me. But when something wonderful happened, they forgot I even existed. When Emily announced her engagement, everyone celebrated like royalty had arrived. My parents spent hundreds of thousands of dollars planning the most luxurious wedding imaginable. They rented a grand ballroom, hired famous photographers, booked expensive decorators, and invited nearly 500 guests. I happily offered to help. I even paid for part of the wedding because I wanted my little sister to have the happiest day of her life. She hugged me, thanked me, and promised, "You're the best brother in the world." I believed her. But as the wedding got closer, something strange started happening. Every time I entered a room, conversations suddenly stopped. Family members quickly changed the subject. My parents whispered whenever I walked by. Emily avoided eye contact whenever I asked about the wedding schedule. At first, I convinced myself they were planning some surprise for me. Maybe they wanted me to give a speech. Maybe they were preparing a special thank you. I had no idea. The surprise was much darker than I could ever imagine. 3 days before the ceremony, my father asked me to meet him in his office. My mother stood beside him with tears in her eyes, but refused to look at me. Emily wasn't there. Dad folded his hands on the table and said in a cold voice, "We've made a decision. You're not coming to the wedding." I laughed nervously and asked, "What do you mean? I'm the bride's brother." He looked at me without emotion and repeated, "Only family is invited." Those words hit harder than any punch. I whispered, "I am family." My mother finally spoke. "Please don't make this difficult. It's better this way." "Better for who?" I asked again and again, but nobody answered. Instead, Mom handed me the envelope with the train ticket and quietly said, "Leave tomorrow morning." I walked upstairs in complete silence and packed a single suitcase. As I passed the hallway, I heard voices coming from the living room. I wasn't supposed to hear what they were saying. Emily's future in-laws had apparently discovered that I existed and had started asking questions. They believed Emily was an only child. My father had deliberately hidden the truth because he feared that revealing I was adopted would damage our family's image in front of the wealthy family his daughter was marrying into. He was afraid they would think less of us. Rather than telling the truth, he decided it would be easier to erase me from the wedding completely. 26 years. 26 years of birthdays, holidays, sacrifices, family dinners, hugs, and memories. And in one conversation, I learned that protecting their reputation mattered more than protecting me. That night, I checked into a small roadside motel 2 hours away. I turned off my phone, ordered cheap takeout, and sat alone, staring at the ceiling. Oddly enough, for the first time in years, nobody needed anything from me. No errands, no favors, No responsibilities. Just silence. Painful silence. The next morning, I woke up to more than 50 missed calls. I ignored every single one. Hours later, another number called. It wasn't my parents. It was the wedding planner. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Please answer," she begged. Apparently, someone had anonymously emailed the groom's family copies of old adoption documents, family records, and photographs proving that my parents had hidden my existence. The groom's parents exploded with anger. They accused my parents of lying from the very beginning. Guests started whispering. Rumors spread through the ballroom. Some people walked out before the ceremony even began. Emily locked herself inside the bridal suite and refused to come out. The groom canceled the ceremony until someone explained the truth. An hour later, my father called again. This time, I answered. His voice was completely different. The man who had always sounded powerful now sounded broken. "Please come back," he whispered. I stayed silent. Then he said something I never thought I'd hear. "They're asking for you. They won't continue until they hear your side of the story." I almost laughed. 3 days earlier, I wasn't family. Now I was suddenly the most important person in the room. I drove back to the wedding venue. As I walked inside, hundreds of people turned to stare. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked curious. Emily was sitting in her wedding dress, with tears running down her face. My mother couldn't stop crying. My father looked 20 years older than he had just days before. The groom walked toward me and calmly asked, "Please tell me the truth." I took a deep breath. "Yes," I said, "I'm adopted." The room fell completely silent. "But these two people," I said, while pointing toward my parents, "are still the only parents I've ever known." Everyone expected me to destroy them. They expected me to expose every lie, every secret, every betrayal. Instead, I continued. "I've never been ashamed of being adopted. What hurts isn't how I came into this family. What hurts is that the people I loved were willing to pretend I wasn't part of it." Nobody spoke. Not my father, not my mother, not even Emily. Then I turned toward my sister. "I paid for part of this wedding because I wanted you to be happy. I would have done anything for you. But when they decided to erase me from your biggest day..." Emily burst into tears. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I was scared. I didn't know what to do." The groom looked around the room before finally speaking. "I don't care that you're adopted," he said. "Family isn't about blood. What I care about is that everyone here agreed to erase someone who loved them simply to protect appearances." His words hit everyone like lightning. My father slowly walked toward me. For the first time in my life, I saw tears in his eyes. "I failed you," he whispered. My mother hugged me tighter than she ever had before. "I'm so sorry." For years I had dreamed of hearing those words. I imagined that if they ever apologized, all the pain would disappear instantly. But standing there, I realized something important. An apology doesn't erase betrayal. It only opens the door to healing.
The wedding was postponed. Months later, Emily and her fiancé held a much smaller ceremony with only close family and friends. This time, there were no lies, no secrets, and no pretending. I stood beside my sister as her best man, not because I had forgotten what happened, but because I refused to let bitterness define the rest of my life. Some people think family is determined by blood. Others think it's determined by a last name. But I learned something different. Family is determined by who chooses to stand beside you when it's difficult, not when it's convenient. The people who hurt you the most can sometimes teach you the greatest lesson of all. Never make someone feel like they don't belong. Because everyone deserves a place where they are loved without conditions. And if you've ever been made to feel like you weren't enough, remember this. Your value has never been decided by the people who failed to recognize it. Sometimes, walking away is the only way for others to realize what they almost lost.